The Rabbi Elyahu, in one of his last words to Am Israel, his last communique, tells us that B'acharit hayamim, in the end of days, that there will be a darkness that will fill all the nations. The entire world will be submerged in the darkness. What darkness was he talking about? He was talking about the difficult struggles and challenges that generations will have before the coming of Mashiach with simple emunah, with simple faith. The continuation of the pasuk says, "Ve'alayich izrach Hashem," but anew on the Jewish people the light of Hashem will shine. The meaning of those words, that the light of Hashem will shine on us, besides the simple meaning that it will become clear to all that we are the children of Hashem, the deeper meaning is that there will be homes, Jewish homes, where the light of the Torah will permeate. For many of us, emunah in Hashem is something easy, it's something that we take for granted. But do we know what is going on in the non-Jewish homes? Does anybody have an idea of what is going on in a Beit Chiloni, in a secular home? There are many Jewish homes where the light of the Torah is dim, if not extinguished completely. What is the difference between our generation and the past? It has always been, unfortunately, a sad phenomena, a terrible tragedy. There was always a percentage of Jewish homes in the past who struggled with simple emunah. So what is the difference between then and today? The difference is that back then, in the past, that emunah was taken away from us by force. The Goyim tried anything they can to extinguish the light of the emunah from the Jew. But today, many of us are doing it to themselves, extinguishing the light on their own. Once upon a time, it was the Greeks, as we read during the Chanuka, "Hem timeu et kol hashemanim." They defiled and they contaminated all which was holy to us. And today, unfortunately, it is we, by learning from the ways of the Goyim, who are defiling our own ways, who are assimilating to the ways of the Goyim. So the question is, what are we supposed to do? Those of us who are a little bit stronger, those of us who have some emunah, how do we contend with a 50 or 55% assimilation rate in this country alone? And when I say assimilation, I'm not just talking about intermarriage. The word assimilation is sometimes misunderstood. People think assimilation means to intermarry with non-Jews. But there is assimilation of the ways of the Goyim. Assimilation of the kind that is even going on in Jewish homes, religious homes. How are we supposed to contend with that? In Chanuka, we say the famous words, Bayamim ahem bazman hazeh, in reference to the miracles that occurred then, and Baruch Hashem and Bezat Hashem are occurring even today. But when we say those key words, Bayamim ahem bazman hazeh, we're not just talking about the miracles, we're also talking about the problems that existed then are also existing today. And if that's so, then the solutions, the pitronot, of how to deal with them, how to resolve them, must exist today, and it's within our hands, within our reach. How are we supposed to approach this problem? Many of you who read the Torah, who read the Chumash on a weekly basis, will definitely see a tremendous difference between two kinds of wars. There is the war of Amalek, where we are instructed to go out and do battle. And there are other wars that Hashem reassures us, Hashem yilachem lachem vatem tacharishun, you won't have to lift a finger. Just hope and pray, and Hashem will conduct the war for you. Why is it that most wars Hashem reassures us He will fight the war for us, but when it comes to doing battle with Amalek, we're instructed to go out, we're instructed to arm ourselves, we're instructed to erase Amalek. What is the difference between Amalek and all other wars? And the answer is quite simple. Just about every war that we've had to deal with was a war that endangered our physical body. When it comes to our physical existence, we're completely in the hands of Hashem. We don't have to worry. He will lead the wars. But when it comes to doing battle on our neshama, our spiritual survival, that is not a time for hibuk yadayim. That is not a time for sitting back with our arms crossed without taking any action. When it comes to doing battle over our soul, over our spiritual existence, that is left to us. Hashem says, you need to do the battle. You need to survive. You need to fight against those enemies that are endangering your spiritual survival. One of the questions that I've always had, looking back at history and wondering how so many people were tempted, were taken, fell for it, as we say in English, for the Greek influence, for other influence. What is it that made them get carried away? What is it that misled them? What tempted them? But if we look back at what tempted the Jews back then in the time of the Greeks, it's the exact same thing that what is tempting them today. It's freedom. Everything in the name of freedom. Unfortunately, look at this country. It started off as freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. Certain rights that the Constitution of this country guarantees. And these are noble. Nevertheless, what did it lead to? It eventually led to all kinds of freedoms, including the freedom of a woman to abort her fetus, including more recently the freedom of what many want for gay rights. There's no end to it. We know that this kind of a freedom that has no restrictions, that is man-made, uharsani, it is destructive, it is corrupt. And we know so by looking at the results, at the consequences of this kind of lifestyle. Look at marriages today. They're falling apart. Look at the education system, the relationship between children and parents. Look at all of that. Look at the crime. In every aspect and in every corner of society, we see how this freedom, this liberty, is corrupt. Man has become his worst enemy. Man has become a prisoner of himself because of this kind of freedom. Now let's look at our freedom, a freedom that comes about through Torah, a Torah that has always guided us, the light of the Torah that has kept us out of trouble, the light of the Torah that has protected us from all sarot, from all the troubles, from all the problems, from all our enemies. That is the true freedom. That is the one that truly guides us to a holy lifestyle, to a lifestyle that B'ezrat Hashem will lead to stronger marriages, to a better bond between parents and their children. That is the true light of freedom. I therefore disagree with many people whose immediate reaction in facing these problems and these challenges is, you can't fight City Hall. Or if you can't beat them, join them. That's not a right thing to say. That is not the right approach. It's not the correct attitude to see things in that way. In order to bring about radical change, it is possible. That requires mesirut nefesh. It requires something called self-sacrifice. Self-sacrifice has historically brought about tremendous radical change. And the first one who embarked on this path of radical change, b'msirut nefesh, was Abraham Avinu, shenipetz et ha'elelim shel Abba shelo. That he shattered the idols of his own father. He did not do it to somebody else. He did not do it to a neighbor. He did it to his own father. That took a lot of guts. That took a lot of courage. But it took more than that. It took Mesirut Nefesh. He risked his life by doing that. But that is what produced results. The story of Chanuka has much Mesirut Nefesh in it. And what's special about the Mesirut Nefesh of Chanuka is that it began with the women. It was through the women's self-sacrifice that emboldened the men. It actually, they demanded of their husbands to go out and fight publicly for what they believe in. It's not enough to practice Judaism privately. It sometimes requires of us to go out and publicly proclaim what we believe in. And that is why Hashem performed the miracle with the oil. Hashem wants us to fulfill His wishes, and He says, I will help you if you initiate, if you demonstrate that you care about it. What is the Mesirut Nefesh of today in the 21st century? Are we expected to actually risk our lives today? These are not times of the Inquisition. These are not times of pogroms the way we knew them in the past. So what kind of Mesirut Nefesh is asked of us today? The Mesirut Nefesh of today is called Pirsum Hanes. It is to proclaim what we do in public. It is to speak up for what we believe in. It is to tell all of those we know that we have any contact with, those who are not as religious and observant, those whose light in their home is extinguished. It is to demonstrate to them openly, without being embarrassed about it, look at our way of life, a Torah life. This is what you should adapt to yourselves. This will bring you true freedom. That responsibility of Pirsum Hanes is for every Jew. Every living Jew, male or female, needs to be a Pirsum Hanes in his own way, in how he conducts himself, in the house that he builds. That life, that home, should be a Pirsum Hanes to all of those around him. I just want to give you 3 examples, 3 areas that need to be proclaimed openly without being embarrassed about, areas that need to be strengthened, that everyone could take upon themselves. One of them is especially true for women, and that is the area of tzniut, an area that is so different by the goyim. 2 opposite worlds, 2 opposite people, 2 opposite human beings are going down Beverly Boulevard. One is totally sanua, Baruch Hashem, and one is completely unsanua. The one who's going sanua, dressed modestly, is making a Kiddush Hashem, is making a Pirsum Hanes. She is proclaiming to all who are seeing her, this is what I believe in. This is the true light. This is what we should be following. The second area is the chinuch of the Yeladim, is the investment in Jewish education. I don't think I need to remind all of you about the importance of sending a child to a Jewish school. But for those of you who know anybody, a relative, a friend, a neighbor, who has been depriving their children of a Jewish education, they are guilty themselves of not saying anything to prevent that assimilation from happening. If we have any influence whatsoever to prevent a Jewish child from going to a non-Jewish school, we have to do something about it. Let them look at our children. Let them see the results. Let the chinuch of Jewish children be a Pirsum Hanes for those who are not even aware, who are ignorant of the benefits of this. The third area is the area of Hapatzat HaEmunah, also incumbent upon us, especially in this generation. Hapatzat HaEmunah means to disseminate the faith in Hashem, to do whatever we can by way of giving out a disc, a tape of a lecture, of some Dvar Torah. It's so easy to do, and we have no idea of the influence that this may have on that ignorant Jew who may never have learned, may never have heard any Divrei Torah. Perhaps that the little bit of light that will enter his home or his car will open up his eyes to see that there is a different kind of lifestyle out there that is a lot healthier. It is the responsibility of our generation to build our homes with windows of the type that the Bet HaMikdash had. The rabbis tell us that the Bet HaMikdash had windows shkufim atumim. They were transparent from the inside. They were wide, which allowed the light to leave and to fill the entire outside, the entire surrounding. But they were atumim from the outside. They were narrower on the outside, not to allow the light from outside inside. If anything, we should make an effort that everything that is in our home, the beautiful Shabbat, the Torah, extends itself from our home to the outside. But it should not be chas v'shalom the other way around, that what is coming from the outside, what dwells outside, which is tameh, which is profane, should chas v'shalom in any way be allowed to enter our home. But how many people nevertheless bring in newspapers? Newspapers. It appears something so silly, something so nothing. But this newspaper has lashon hara, has tum'ah, has pritzut, choser tzniut, all the problems that I've mentioned before. And by reading it, by looking at it, by buying it and supporting it, we're actually not only assimilating, we're actually giving credence to this lifestyle. We're bringing it into our home and allowing our children to see it, and chas v'shalom to assimilate to it. The windows of our home therefore need to be shkufim atumim. That which is outside should not be let inside. That which is inside should go outside. The greatest mistake the Greeks made is the same mistake people are making today. That the center of the universe, the most important part of the world, is man himself. Man cannot exist without a master. We cannot exist without rules, without guidelines. We cannot exist without the light of the Torah leading us. It has always been, therefore, the mission of the Jew to instruct the entire world that those hashkafot, that outlook and perspective that they have subscribed to, is wrong. It's erroneous. It will lead to their eventually downfall. Today, as I started out saying, there's a tremendous amount of darkness. But very soon, there will be a tremendous amount of light. As Shlomo Melech tells us, Mizot nishkafa kemo shachar, yafa kalevana, baraka hama, ayuma kanidgalot. The light of Mashiach will first appear as the light of dawn. Not everybody will be able to make anything of it. Not everybody will be able to discern or to see what's coming. But then it will shine like the light of the moon, and eventually will be as bright as the light of the sun. This is hopefully the time of our generation when we're Baruch Hashem, seeing the darkness go away little by little, step by step. Tremendous amount of Balei Teshuvah who are seeing the light. That is Baruch Hashem, the light of the Mashiach, which will very soon, Bezrat Hashem, brighten up for all of us to see. Thank you.